And we're live. So we're gonna touch on the. Yeah, okay. Hello, Moto. Sorry I'm
Hello,
late.
hello.
Hello, everybody. Can't see chat yet. Sorry I'm late. With some personal issues I had to deal with. Hey, Purple Gang. Hey, Lady C. Hello, hello, hello. Hello to everybody. I know I'm late. Don't beat me. Don't hold it against me. Oh, talk about Eddie and look what's in your mouth. I know some people don't be shy.
Right.
Oh,
Hello, hello. Welcome, welcome.
um,
Oh,
oh, oh. Yeah. I'm already a half hour late. We went from 7 to 4, 4 to 7, 7 to 4, 7 to 4. I wait for a few people to come in.
I would so do it, but I only did it. Oh, no, look at your face.
yes, Purple Gain. All is well. Thank you. How about with yourself?
All is okay.
Susan, how are you?
Hello, Susan. How are you, darling? I'm late. Some personal family issues to deal with.
How could you?
I got all of our tabs, notes, and stuff up.
Right. I have my notes down the bottom.
Hey, 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 everybody. All right. I'm going to share it
Oof.
out.
It's actually nice and cool here for once, Purple Gang. It just got cool when the sun went down. I
Yeah.
took the dog out and I was like, oh, it's kind of nice out here.
Hello, Roger Rabbit.
Roger Rabbit, hello, welcome.
Okay. So there's 6 people here now. Okay. So tonight is the last of the Gabriel Fernandez series story we're doing here on the roundtable. Um, Tonight we're going to get more into the sheriff's department or the last of the Mohicans of the story. Um, and and then we're gonna chat with everybody. Hello, Sarah. Then we're gonna chat with everybody, get everyone's opinions, their thoughts on everything we shared for the past 4 weeks. Um, if there's any questions they wanna ask that they wasn't sure of, didn't understand. Um, yeah. So where do we want to start, Doris?
Let's see.
Got the notes in front of me if you want me to share them.
So first off, we looked into a little bit more on the sheriff's department. That was the one thing we hadn't really touched on. We talked a lot last week about the DCFS division. And we did find a few articles about the sheriff's department and some of the deputies that were involved in all the different times that they went to Gabriel's house. They had gone because the school had called them, the principal, the teacher, the security guard. Apparently, the families called, and apparently there were 9 different deputies that went to his house from 2013 up until I believe it was the week before he died. And apparently the policy with them is when a deputy goes to the house, they're supposed to file along with making notes in their computer in their car, they're supposed to file a official police report whether or not they find any evidence of abuse. And apparently that goes to the special victims unit, which are the detectives who are specially trained. And apparently not one of these detectives that went to Gabriel's house ever filed one of those reports. They all made log entries saying they went to his house. Most of them made log entries that they'd spoken to the parents. Some of them made log entries that they spoke to Gabriel himself, but none of them ever said anything about examining Gabriel or seeing any marks on Gabriel. And then apparently they all left it at that, which is one of the reasons why the special victims unit never investigated further, because it never got pushed up to them because these reports were not filed. This was one of the reasons why when the investigation was started into DPFS, it's so different with every state. I get confused with the letters sometimes.
Yeah.
So basically the Child Protective Services, they started an investigation, the county did. And at the same time, they started a investigation into the deputies or the sheriff's department, which triggered the sheriff's department to start its own internal investigation. And what they found was, like I said, they never filed those reports to initiate the special victims unit to investigate, to go and speak to Gabriel or the parents, or apparently they never even spoke to people around them to find out if any of the allegations that the original complaint were true or if anyone else had ever noticed it. For instance, when one of them went, or when the security guard who called GPSA, the Child Protective Services, he also called 911 and reported to one of the deputies, a woman named Robin Sokup, and had told her that Gabriel had come in and he had bruises and burns all over his face and his head. And apparently he was told by this deputy that a child being burned was not an emergency. This was not released until the prosecutor had done their own investigation and forced by court order the sheriff's department to release Gabriel's file. Apparently they were trying to keep it from him, but he ended up getting a judge to order them to release it. And that was how he found out about all these different times that the deputies went to Gabriel's house. At one point, another deputy, Jonathan Livingston, who was apparently a deputy that was assigned to Gabriel's school, which was one of the deputies that the school itself sent to Gabriel's house when he had missed a week of school. And he wrote in his log that he spoke to Aguirre, saw Gabriel, and then wrote an entry in his computer log, according to court records, that Gabriel had fallen off of his bicycle, according to Aguirre, and there was no evidence of child abuse. He made no mention of examining Gabriel further. Apparently, he just kind of looked at what he could see, like Gabriel's face. He never lifted his shirt. He never looked at any other part of Gabriel's body. And just like all the other deputies, he did not file that police report that would prompt further investigation.
And also, during the trial, we touched on this a little bit when we first started the Gabriel story. When Pearl and Aguirre's trial started for the murder of Gabriel, the judge had to tell Gabriel's lawyer, hello, Jerry, that there was an investigation in the sheriff's department regarding Gabriel's death. And he emailed and emailed and emailed and emailed. He even went to a friend of his that was in his apartment and was getting no response. The judge in Gabriel's case forced the sheriff's department to give up information. And eventually, what was determined during that trial was that there was like Dora said, there was an internal affair investigation going on because of what happened in Gabriel's case, which should have been told to Pearl, Aguirre, and Gabriel's attorneys, and nobody knew. There is, however, a new sheriff. A lot of people were asking questions why the social workers were brought up on charges and not the sheriffs that were involved in this as well. They didn't really get into too many details on how they took care of the officers. They just said that, like Dora said, there's a pending investigation. However, the sheriff that was in charge back then is no longer the sheriff now. There is a new sheriff in charge. And I have to say, my humble personal opinion is that this new sheriff in charge of the department is trying his hardest to stop what is happening to these children. Even more so now because there's a stay-at-home order there in California. And there's an article I'll read you in a little bit and show where West Haven, where he's trying to do better. Like he's actually trying to be able to do home visits so the Department of Child Services doesn't have to do it all by themselves, because what's happening right now is the children ain't going out. They're not going to school. They're not being seen outside. So the abuse isn't being reported as much as it would be if they didn't have the stay-at-home order. And so, and the caseworkers are complaining, as the clips you heard from us play last week, they're complaining that their caseload is, they have a lot. They're overloaded. They have way too many children, and some slip through the crack. And this sheriff is trying to help them during this pandemic. His exact words is that there is not another Gabriel or another Anthony, because he he doesn't want that. He doesn't want to have to go through that again. Um, so there is hope in the sheriff's department, but Child Protective Services kind of isn't letting the sheriff's department in to help them, which me and Doris, it boggles our mind because again, they're saying their caseload is overloaded. There's not enough time to thoroughly check, not enough training, all this. Or if they allow the sheriff to do what he wants to do, they would have more time. They would if there won't be so much burden on them. And quite frankly, like we said last week and weeks prior, the sheriffs can get in faster and see more than the Department of Child Services. They can just take the kid. They lift the shirt up, they examine the kid, they can just take him. Call supervisors, say I'm taking the boy to the hospital. There ain't gonna be no questions asked like Child Protective Services has to go through. There's no red flags, there's no hoops. And like me and Doris and Bashful said a few weeks ago, they're at home with their abusers now. You know? So let me find that article and I'll read it. So, let me share my screen.
And one of the things that was also touched on when the security guard called 911, the detective or the deputy that supposedly yelled at him, they never said whether that was ever passed on to the school deputy about the security guard calling 911. Now they said that that happened right before that deputy went to Gabriel's house and was told by Aguirre he had fallen off his bike and that he saw no signs of abuse. If you remember the Mother's Day pictures, it was obvious that he had marks all over him.
Mm-hmm.
When they released the report, they had said that it wasn't clear whether Gabriel had been beaten more after the detective saw him or if all of those marks were there when he saw him. Because as I said, he never said whether or not he looked at Gabriel. He just said no obvious signs of abuse.
I'm gonna call bullshit because them pictures that he took in school for Mother's Day, they were visible.
Right. And they were at least, some of them looked like they were at least a week old.
Right.
And he'd been out of school for that week.
Right. And when the boy died, he was covered from head to toe.
Right.
So how did you not see the BB gun in his face, the BB gun pellet in his face, and the skin missing off his? How do you get patches of hair? You know, how's that not visible? You know, the black eye. You know,
right.
I don't.
And one thing that someone had said was they weren't really sure why Child Services and the Sheriff's Department were so quick to take Gabriel from his grandparents when, in her father's words, Pearl basically stole him. She apparently told them she was taking him to a barbecue and then never brought him back. And when the parents showed them the paper that they had where Pearl signed custody of him over, they had told them that basically wasn't a legal document. And they said that Pearl had every right to take Gabriel. The new sheriff, I believe it is, said that now the detective or the deputies are not allowed to make that decision. They basically have to leave it as it is and let higher ups deal with that.
Right.
Apparently he's adding all new trainings that from now on they have to automatically send something to the special victims unit because they are not trained, that basically they're not supposed to take the family's word at face value anymore, which I don't
Exactly.
think they should have to begin with. And that now if what the family's saying and how the child looks does not match, that automatically gets a further investigation by specially trained detectives.
Um, Susan said that's like when CPS took me away, layers of bruises, and not one cop wrote it down. Small town, and my mom was respected. Yeah, and I'm not saying that's right, Susan, but in a small town, it's common. This isn't a small town that these children are being murdered in. Gabriel, Anthony, Noah, and we just, like I said, we found two other children, um, one other little girl recently. Um, and Anthony, Noah, and the little girl we're going to be talking about in these following weeks, their cases aren't even complete yet. So, um, and I'm not, and it shouldn't be happening in small towns. It shouldn't be happening in any town. You know what I mean? It shouldn't be who you know and what you know in the small towns. I get it. It's like that here. And in these bigger cities, people just don't want to be bothered. You know what I mean? Especially depending on the crime rate in some of these cities. They just don't want to be bothered.
Right.
Um, so I'm going to read an article and I'm going to share it. Um, this was released by the new sheriff, who is, hello, Vanessa, by the way, who's actually trying to make a difference. This article was released, as you can see, April 21st, 2020. So it's not that long ago. And it's from the LA Times. It says coronavirus leads to alarming drop in child abuse reports. LA County Sheriff plans. Now, mind you, we told you earlier, weeks following this article, they were denied. Um, so what do I want to start? Okay, so they're saying on a typical day, up to 1,000 calls and reports of suspected child abuse, neglect flood into the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department and Department of Family Services. Eagle Eye teachers, doctors, dentists, counselors, coaches, an army of mandated reporters across California, along with security guards, janitors, and observant parents typically fill the hotline with reports of suspected child abuse or neglect. Those calls, investigators say, often save lives. Not the kids we're talking about. But since the outbreak of the coronavirus has shuttered schools, curtailed medical visits, and largely hidden the lives of children behind closed doors, the reports of suspected abuse have dropped by as much as 50%. The drop began almost immediately after California began its stay-at-home order to prevent the spread of the coronavirus. We usually have a lot of eyes and ears out there making sure children are safe. But right now, we don't know what is happening behind closed doors. Los Angeles County Sheriff Alex I can't say his last name, Alex V, said Monday in an interview. This is the sheriff, the county sheriff that took over for the one that was in charge when Gabriel was murdered. um, Quote, again, we do not want another Gabriel or another Anthony. You're going to learn about Anthony, and he's the next child we're going to talk about. That is the little boy we told you died not long after Gabriel, 3 blocks away from Gabriel's house. matter of fact. Um, and he was beaten and tortured by his mother and live-in boyfriend as well. And he had a lot of the same um, Department of Child Services workers and a lot of the same sheriff, I believe, went to his house as well.
And they said that the way that his case was so similar to Gabriel's as far as the type of abuse
Right. And
was
he
like
and
eerie.
right. And according to with Anthony, the other similarity with Gabriel is he was abused because they thought he was gay. Okay, moving on. Um, he is referring to two young boys who were killed after lengthy and repeated incidents of child abuse at home. The sheriff goes on to say, "This is my worst nightmare." All right, so we're not going to go back into the Gabriel thing because you know all about that. So it says in March, the LA County Sheriff's Department documented about 4,200 reports on its suspected child abuse reporting system, compared with 5,218 reports the year before. The drop is even more dramatic so far in April, with 662 reports in the first week with um compared with I lost my box, my phone went off.
Compared with
Oh, compared
52.
with 662 reports in the first week, compared with 1,352 in 2019. This is again a statement from the sheriff. Quote, "These numbers are alarming because of the magnitude of the decline. Those declines also come as his deputies are responding to an untick in reports of domestic violence as residents are under stay-at-home orders to prevent the disease spread. In response to the drop of abuse reports, the sheriff said he is launching a plan due to do welfare checks on our most at-risk kids with patrol personnel. He said he is working with the Special Victims Unit, the Department of Children and Family Services, and other stockholders to develop a way to identify high-risk minors who may not have contact with their schools and then have patrol deputies do the same form of welfare check. The sheriff, who spent years working the streets and is a veteran of child abuse and neglect investigations, said teachers, daycare workers, and janitors are the key to investigators when it comes to protecting children. Without schools, daycare facilities, counseling programs, he said the abuse is likely to still go on out of sight. The sheriff said, we are at the mercy of those who report. We need the community to take up the slack." Um, they said that Los Angeles Police Deputy Chief Chris Pitcher, who oversees detectives, said in the first month since the stay-at-home order, the department has a record of 44% drop in suspected child abuse reports, with 1,173 from March 17th to April 17th, compared with the 2,488 for the same period in 2019. Ginger Pryor, Chief Deputy Director, Department of Children and Family Services, said the decline in the reports is unprecedented and is occurring across the nation as most areas have gone into some form of shutdown because of the pandemic. So, um, it's a little worrisome. Like, um, can't see chat.
Because you gotta remember, not only is more than likely with the shutdown and the stay-at-home orders, the abuse is probably happening more often, and the people that are the biggest reporters of the abuse are the schools and the daycares, because they're the ones that see the kids and see the marks, and they see them every day. So they see all the changes
Right.
in them.
And the hospitals and doctors, they when you're being abused, that's the last place they want to take you. Your abuser wants to take you because they know as soon as you step foot in that doctor's office, the hospital, they're gonna know. They're gonna know straight away. So that's the last place an abuser is going to take their children. So when the child goes in and they're um and the hospital or the doctor's office reports it to DS to Child Protective Services and the child can't leave, that's because at that point the abuser has no choice. There is another case scenario where parents do take their children to the doctors quite often, but they are inflicting the child's injuries and illness themselves, and they suffer from Munchausen syndrome. So there is cases where abusers do it, but abusers like Tony and Pearl, and as you're gonna learn with Anthony's parents and Noah's and the other little girl, um, they don't because they have no compassion. They don't care. Even a, even a parent that has Munchausen syndrome, at some degree they have compassion. Um, Pearl, Tony, the other two sets of parents were gonna. There's no compassion. There was none, and I have to say again for Tony, at least during his interrogation and when they were talking to him, I think his concern about Gabriel was legit. I truly do think he blacked out, and at that point, he knew he went too far. Um, I think his silence and his cold demeanor throughout the trial um, was because that's how they show it. You know, they don't show emotion. They don't. Thank you, Dave Lopez.
Thank you, David.
They don't show emotion. They don't. It was how he was raised. You know what I mean? So, and when you, and there's probably a whole bunch of shit going in Tony's head too. But at the end of the day, he could have stopped himself. He knew he
Right.
had them anger issues. It's alleged that he too went through the abuse growing up, and um, even though his sister says no, but you know, and Pearl herself has been through hell and back. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
So, what is there? I don't. There's no compassion for these children. You'll see it with Anthony, the next kid we're working. We're gonna be telling his story too. Um, there's no compassion. There's none. You know, and um, the like the sheriff's department, like throughout the whole thing, they they didn't help Gabriel. And then when it was going to trial, they started covering stuff up and
Yep.
hiding things. Like they know, being in law enforcement, that Gabriel's attorney should have known what was going on in the cases that was going on, and all that. You know what I mean? But they hid it and kept trying to hid it until they had no choice but to tell. You know, um, and again, um, we're gonna say this again. People are upset and they have their opinions about us doing the Gabriel story, and we're gonna continue with the other children. There's a reason for this. There is a reason for this. Um, and I said it last week, and I'm gonna say it now when I'm not so angry and upset. There was a lot going on in this world right now, and there was a lot of uh, protesting and rioting and all that, and um, a lot of movements. And I feel like this is another movement that needs to happen because
Mhm.
in our country right now, everybody is sick of everything. And I'm not saying how people are going about it right now, is exactly the right way, but people are just tired. And they're tired of promising things are going to get changed and this is not going to continue to happen. And we're working on restructuring and fixing everything, and then it happens again. In the midst of Gabriel's case, death, um, Anthony was murdered. And then as Gabriel's trial started, Noah was murdered. And then now Anthony and Noah's trial's going on, and this next little girl is murdered in the same county.
And that's my thing. Like, the Child Protective Services is claiming they started making all these changes immediately after Gabriel's death, and how they hired all these new workers. And like, we found an article that they said they hired 3,500 more social workers. Well, what I want to know is, that's fine, but why are these kids still dying if you put all these safety measures into effect? They claim that they changed their whole training procedure, and they trained their social workers in the new way on how to spot abuse. And there's now supervisors are at they only have 5 social workers under them, versus what they said, like they had like 20 under them before. But it's all still happening. So it's like, if you've made all these changes, where do we see the results?
Right.
There's still, when I was looking up, I found all kinds of articles of families whose kids were taken away with no evidence of abuse. Like they ended up getting their children back months later, because when they took DCFS to court, it was proven they didn't abuse their children. So it's like, you got to take kids away that aren't actually abused, but when they're being abused, you're going to give them back to their parents.
Mm. Yeah. And, you know, I personally feel, and we touched on this a little bit too in the beginning of this series, the Child Protective Services, I feel, they're like most people that have jobs like them and see some of the things that they see, they need a psych screening every so many years, like a fireman, like a police officer. Um, when, for an example, when Kevin and Gerald, that's the other guy's name, I can't even remember the other old guy's name. Oh, Kevin there. Kevin was a social worker that was trying to bang Pearl. Um, and then the other old man, whatever the hell, I forgot his name. When he made them notes about the little old nun there, um, that right there was proof that she didn't want to do her job. So why keep her? Why not give her a psych eval? Then when you get Kevin, who was fired from one county, brought on to this county, got his license taken away from this county, got fired, and then was hired in another county without a license, and nobody knew about what was going on throughout these counties with this man Kevin. Well, one county fired him, then he came to this county, and Gabriel died, and I think he may still been around for Anthony. And then, yet, why would I wouldn't hire him anyway? I just want. Um, and I do feel, like I said time and time again, that these caseworkers um, are very much responsible for the death of Gabriel, for the death of Anthony, and possibly the death of Noah too, because you have one job and one job to do, and that is to take children out of dangerous situations at home. That is what you do. And if you're not doing your job right and they're left there, stuff happens, like with Gabriel and Anthony and Noah.
And then one of the reports that I missed when we originally covered it was that the burn, Gabriel had a burn above his groin area that went through all the layers of skin into the soft tissue. That is like, that's considered a third-degree burn when it goes that far. And they were all by cigarettes or some type of cylinder object that they were using to burn him.
And wouldn't that make an odor?
Right. It would stink. I don't know if, I mean, you can imagine, I'm sure most, especially women, you've burnt your hair. You know how bad that stinks. And they say that skin burning or
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
a body burning is the worst smell you could ever smell.
Oh my God, Kim. And that odor don't leave. Like it
No,
lingers.
it lingers because that whole area is damaged. And sometimes, especially if untreated, it stinks more and more as it goes because it's not healing. So all that tissue and skin are continuing to basically rot away.
I can't.
So whatever they burnt him with had to have been held there for a long time.
Yeah. I can't. And the scream. Like the neighbors had to hear him if he was
Right.
burned like that. Somebody heard him besides the other children in that home. And I think, honestly, the BB gun, and the kids even said it. Um, the burning, the BB gun, like the ice baths, that was all Pearl. The
Yep.
physical stuff was Tony,
Yep.
you know? And that shows you how sick and twisted Pearl was. Like, and I'm the mace, the tasing, like mm, I don't.
And unfortunately,
That's what I
when
thought too, Ken. That's what I thought too. Ken said burning flesh is disgusting to stay, and the smell stays around
right,
for a long time.
I mean, and that's what I mean. And like I said, they say when it's actually burning, it's the worst smell you can have. And like I said, when you burn your hair,
That's
until you wash it,
it stinks.
it stinks and it lingers, and that's all you can smell.
Mhm. I can't imagine, man. Like, and they said that like because the BBs were lodged in his lung, that poor boy had to be in pain every day just
Right,
to
just
breathe.
breathing.
Right, because I couldn't imagine like
Now,
and
just imagine that on top of broken ribs, because
right,
he had broken
right,
ribs.
right. And to me, Gabriel is an inspiration because going through all that and the pain he had to be in every day, like you said, with the broken ribs and the BB lodged in his lung, and just the abuse every day, for him to still be happy and grateful and showing love and still seeing the good in his mother.
Hmm.
That it's sad that that 8-year-old boy was more of a human being, more compassionate than the adults raising him.
The thing that I found kind of funny was when, so apparently there was a deputy that went to the house originally when the school reported the suicide note. He went to this house at 2 a.m. and said he never got to talk to Gabriel.
It's
A
2
normal
a.m.
person would wonder, where is the 8-year-old boy at 2 a.m.? Why isn't he home?
And at one time, she told the sheriffs that he was in Texas.
Yep. And the sheriff The sheriff and the deputy closed the case because they believed that he had gone to Texas.
Meanwhile, he's gagged, tied up in the box, locked in there. Because at
And
that
the
point,
deputy,
Gabriel,
that was when the deputy was sent to the house by the school, and the deputy reported back to the school that she had sent Gabriel to live with his mother or his grandmother. He never actually went to the house because he reported later he didn't even have the right address. So he never even went to the house. And all that happened to these deputies people is they were internally disciplined. None of them were fired. They all still worked there. And all they released they were internally punished.
the only thing that changed was the guy in charge of me. That's it.
Yep, that's it. So only the person that gets voted in got changed. Because he was basically, I'm assuming, forced to not run again.
Right.
Because of all the publicity and everything that happened.
Right. So, and just a reminder, the Facebook link that's being dropped by Nightbot is to Gabriel's foundations. If anyone would like to donate to them, that's why we've been doing this. Because whatever proceeds the roundtable makes for any of these streams, which YouTube don't like very much, we will be donating to one of Gabriel's foundations as well. If you don't have Facebook and you still would like to donate to one of the charities made in Gabriel's name, contact me or Doris. We have the information. It is legit, people. I looked into it. There's even a tax ID number. Now, with the social workers, we told you last week, no charges, again, were dismissed. The new charges were dismissed. However, Gabriel's father took them to court for a civil lawsuit, and he lost. But Pearl's parents did not. We don't know how much they got because it was settled outside of court. So it's not justice, but they'll never forget Gabriel. And like Gabriel's lawyer said, if we can't get in the court, just keep going after their pockets. You know, I do believe the sheriff should have been fired, or demoted, something. I do believe these caseworkers, like I said, need to be charged with something.
Yes.
I don't think they should be allowed to get away with Gabriel's death, Anthony's death, Noah's death. If you know, especially in Anthony's case, you'll see when we start talking about Anthony, there's a lot, like Doris said earlier, a lot of similarities between Gabriel's death and Anthony's death, and that around me, you know what I mean? And last week, I called Gabriel the invisible child. He was very much the invisible child. And I believe it's the same for Anthony. I haven't really dove into Noah yet, but I do believe that same expression is good for Anthony. He was another invisible child. That was, and he can't even say that they were allowed to be slipped through the cracks, because you can't have two children tortured 3 blocks away from each other around the same time and die. Say you're being slipped through the cracks. It's not being slipped through the cracks. That's someone clearly not doing their fucking job.
And I believe at one point or another, especially with, I believe it was Noah, their parents lost custody of these kids and got it back, even with complaints pending against them for some form of neglect or abuse.
Anthony too. They lost custody of Anthony.
Right, and that's one of the similarities between Anthony and Gabriel. Anthony lived the first half of his life with his maternal grandmother.
Yep.
One of the things, and this I think should, in my opinion, be a federal law, not just a state law. One of the things California is trying to do is pass something called Gabriel's Law. It's basically a statewide law that about child abuse and reporting, and a new system they're putting into effect where all legal, medical, and like child protective services, welfare, all have the same computer system and all can see the same reports. And so all the disciplines get alerted whenever a child abuse claim comes in.
So they share the same database.
Right. So that way it increases, because that was the biggest problem in these cases, I think, is none of the different officers spoke.
Mm-hmm.
So the deputies investigated their side, Child Protective Services investigated their side, but neither one knew that the other one had complaints
Right. And the
at the same
deputies
time.
and the deputies that reported to the special victims unit.
Right.
And then, and like we told you guys last week, in the Department of Social Service, Child Protection Services, there was little departments within there, and none of them talked to one another. Like when Gabriel, his caseworkers changed. The teacher talked to the same one, but then there was another one, and then there was another one, and then when he went to the hospital, that's another caseworker, because they all work in different departments within that agency. That to me is stupid. For one, like I guess it kind of makes sense, but at the same time, if you're gonna have all these little departments within the department, can you all fucking communicate with each other? You know, like bounce. You know, like I don't understand. Like I don't understand it. I don't understand. There's too many. I say this all the time, and I mean this, and I use this in my real life too. Instead of going through channels of people to get your point across and say what you need to be said, just go straight to the person.
Right.
Because this is what happens. And we all played this game as a kid at our age. You put the cup to your ear. We did it in school. You put the cup to your ear, and the one kid's got the cup in the ear, and then you're told to say something in that cup. And by the time it gets down that line, what was started, what you said, has completely and totally changed by the time it got to the last child in
Yep.
the room. I believe because there's so much that goes on and so many people to go through, things get messed up, things get changed, reports ain't right. Thank you, Ken, very much. I appreciate it. We appreciate it. Every little bit helps.
Yes.
And I believe that's what's happening here. And if they
Right.
all come together like this new deputy wants to do, there will be no in between man. And as long as they do their paperwork right and they put it in the system correctly, there's no second guessing. You already know.
And another thing that I think is good about this system that I'm assuming this new sheriff has a hand in is the computer system they're using.
Hmm.
Once there are more than 2 complaints of child abuse for one child, it automatically goes up the chain. So it will, once it's like the 3rd complaint for that one child, it will automatically go to the special victims unit and bypass the deputies. So that way there's no failure of someone didn't file that appropriate report. So that's why it never got bumped up the line. This
Right,
computer system will automatically do it.
right. And there's a computer system very similar that they use now. And I'm speaking of companies, I have to show you this because we didn't really touch on this, but let me share a screen. Um, speaking of little companies in the middle and things getting confusing and da 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 da, this is another. Oh, hold on. Oh, wait. You see this company right here? This is a company that they used to take on some of their caseload. Maximus and the industry complex. The reason why they're asking did they fail Gabriel too is because they, a lot of times, if they feel they're too overloaded and they can't give the children's cases as much attention as they need, they bring them and they have these companies use them. And then they assess the cases and determine how much attention it needs, how dangerous the danger the child is in, so on and so forth. Um, so if you guys want to look more into this company and look more into it yourself, I can put the link into the chat.
And this is the same company that we spoke about, a social worker, I think last week, that said that she was told not to report suspected abuse back to CP, the Child Protective Services. And then once Gabriel died, she was told not to cooperate with the police department doing the investigation by her direct supervisor. And her direct supervisor altered her records so it looked like there was no abuse.
Yeah, so I put it in chat if anybody is interested in looking into it further themselves. It's just, one more thing that they, Child Protection Services kind of like tried to throw them under the rug more and take on responsibility themselves too.
And one of the report that I read about the social worker and her direct supervisor, one thing that kind of bothered me is the president of this company, when he was questioned about things that his company missed, his reply was, Maximus is an entity. It's not up to the entity to report findings, it's up to the individual. So he basically threw his social worker under the bus when she was told not to report back to CPS about the abuse, what she saw, and not to cooperate with the police. So they're kind of like pointing fingers at each other with CPS and this company. CPS saying, well, we did our thing. We even put his case under fresh eyes and they didn't find anything.
Yeah. So, like, again, I'm going to reiterate, this is why we are telling these children's stories. And it's mind-blowing the amount of times it has happened in this county. But the more you look in to children's stories like this, the more we research it, the more children are coming up. And if you go to Gabriel's Facebook page, or you go to Anthony's Facebook page, or you go to Noah's, you see the amount of children that this is happening to. And
that's the one good thing about these foundations is they don't make it only about Gabriel. It's completely about child abuse in general.
Right.
They put all kinds of new reports up about other children that were, and not only ones that died, but ones that survived the abuse.
Right. Um, and for an example of families, it's not just the foundation. Gabriel's family, no, Anthony's family, and Noah's family have all come together to work together to make sure they try to get the Gabriel law to pass. And they'll protest, they'll go out with signs because they really do want something to happen with DSS. I mean, not DSS, Child Protection Services.
And in my research today, I did find a petition that they put up asking people not only in California but in other states to sign the petition. And we know that a lot of times once a law is passed in one state, other states follow if it shows an impact in what that law is about. So we can help make the law across the country, the more people sign it and get the law passed.
Right. So tonight is the last of Gabriel's story. It was not forgotten. I'm never ever gonna forget this story. I'm never ever gonna forget this little boy. Like this story has touched my heart, um, in more ways than one. Like and not just the torture and the beating this little boy got, just Gabriel himself, his heart. And like I said earlier, the abuse that he withstanded, the pain that boy was in every day with the broken lung and the BB gun in the BB pellet in it, and just getting up every day and breathing was excruciating for this boy. But he still smiled, he still was happy, he still showed love and compassion and forgiveness. An 8-year-old boy was able to forgive and still continue to love when most adults can't do that. So when I say the story has touched me in more ways than one, I'm not just talking about the negative of it. I'm talking about the positive that came out of it too. Um, so I forgot what I was gonna say with it. So we're ending the Gabriel story tonight. And again, Gabriel will never be forgotten, ever. Not in my heart. I'm never gonna forget this little boy. Um, and we're gonna take a break next week, and we're gonna go back to the Tiger King because there is some updates since we've done the Tiger King, a lot actually. Um, and we're gonna go back to that for a little break mentally for me and Doris mainly. um, and go back to the Tiger King because you know it's crazy. It's yeah, like I said when we did a Tiger King, you have to see it to believe it. Like, because if I didn't see it, I would fucking think this whole thing was fake too. But I saw it. And then after next week, we're gonna get into not next Friday, but the following Friday, we're gonna get into Anthony's story. Um, at that point, I'm going to, well, me and Doris, because we do this together, um, to get that petition, and we're gonna put it in the link in our chat in the night box because not only is it to spread awareness. Hello, Lord.
Hi, Lorna. Thank you.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you, Hannes.
Thank you. Not only are we doing this to spread awareness, but we want things to change. So together, me and Doris will work on a way to get that petition and put it in our night box. So whoever and anyone that wants to sign it, um, it's there because that's is what me and Doris are doing it for. To spread awareness, to tell these children's stories. It just so happened that Gabriel's was the first story and the worst. And if even after Gabriel's death, he was able to try to change something, open people's eyes, you know. So he's the foundation of this. He's the one that brought the awareness, as sad as it was, and thank you, Mike.
Ooh, geez, Mike.
As sad as it was that he died, how he died, but he is the case that brought light to all this. So, in return, like I said over and over again, even though our platform ain't as big as most, I want to use it not just for the roundtable shenanigans, but for something good as well. So, uh, again, me and Doris will work on getting that petition and putting it in the night pot. Um, is there any questions besides Mike's about the Gabriel stuff that we went over for the past few weeks? And any comments, questions before we end it and go to the regular roundtable shenanigans?
And I can get my drink on. Because I don't have to work tomorrow, people.
Yay, Doris ain't gotta work. Mike, if you were here since the beginning,
Right,
part
Mike?
of this chat, you would know who Gabriel is. We went into full detail on who Gabriel was. Yes.
So you can go back and watch our previous live streams, Mike, and then you will know who Gabriel is.
But thank you for the donations, because every donation we get during the stream goes to Gabriel's foundation.
Or you could even go on Netflix and watch the Trials of Gabriel.
Thank you,
Tell
Jim.
him, Jimmy. Tell him. See, and even Thomas is like, what the fuck, Mike?
The fuck, Mike.
Huh, Bubby?
So any questions? Any besides you, Mike?
Right, Mike, you shut off.
Anything we didn't cover that you wanted to know about that possibly we could have left out?
Or does anybody have anything to add that we
Yeah,
didn't
that too.
cover?
That too.
Hello?
Is this thing working? Shut up,
What the
Mike.
fuck, Mike? Nobody cares about what the fuck, Mike, either, but we still let you in here.
I wonder if I time him out when he get upset. I don't know. Let's find out. Thank you, Mama Redneck. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you, Susan.
I love you, Mike.
We'll see you at the round table shenanigans, Mike.
I just had to do it because I never seen no one do it to Mike. Sorry, Mike. Love you. Don't be mad at me, don't beat me. I don't want to be the midget you kicked. All right, Doris, I'm going to leave you alone for 2 seconds. I can go smoke a cigarette.
All right. So, does anyone but Mike not know about Gabriel? Is there anything that you didn't know that you want to know? I think we covered pretty much everything, but maybe not. Like I said, you could know something that we didn't cover. Or do you know, do you have suggestions on an abuse case on a later stream that you would like us to cover? Maybe. Maybe. Maybe not. Hello, Josie. How are you? Thanks for popping in. We actually just opened the question part because we're going to be ending this one, and I believe, are going to start the regular roundtable stream shortly. I know that you jumped in on the other streams. Lorna, a lot of people would like that. I don't know if you watched our stream last week. Thank you. Thank you. Pearl, Gabriel's mother, did get attacked in the prison she's in, or at least there's some reports of her being attacked. They said that they cut her face, they hit her with locks and forks, they stomped her. Thank you, Susan. We greatly appreciate the feedback and know that everyone, I think, enjoyed it.
I'm gonna put a link. Thank you, thank you. I'm gonna put the link in chat of them reports for people that want to see about Pearl being attacked because.
And Kate, Ken donated $2 more for timing out Mike.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't know what trouble I just got myself into, Ken, but you're welcome. Like, gonna fuck me up.
But yeah, Lorna, so we did report last week. Like I said, I know you were in the stream, but you may not have seen the part where we covered that Pearl got attacked. So she did get a little bit of justice. She's in the protective status right now after the attack. But apparently, according to the report, that interview was done with a woman who was in the same prison, and she said that you would not recognize Pearl. She doesn't look the same because apparently when they were cutting her, they cut her face.
Yeah, I'm gonna drop the videos for y'all. We're getting the links right now. Through all this investigation, this has been finding those.
Right, and if you guys are interested, Lisa and I did keep a lot of the links of the investigation that we did. So if you wanted to look into it further, you could. And like I said, if you find an abuse case that interests you and you'd like us to cover it, we can do that at some point. Oh, that's fine, Lorna. So last week we worked on a lot of the Protective Services Division and most of the trial. So this is our 4th stream.
Yes.
Yes, Ken.
So.
And Lorna, if you're gonna watch the four streams, Just a warning, the second one is the more graphic of the one of them. That's where we show a lot of the pictures of Gabriel before, during, and after the abuse.
No, we'll leave that to the redneck skin. All right, so this is one of the videos I have talking about Pearl's attack. The next one I'm gonna put in is by a content creator. His name is Savage. He actually interviewed one of the inmates that was involved um, in the beating of Pearl Fernandez.
Captain.
Captain. Like I said, there is a Gabriel clips on the roundtables playlist for anybody that wants to go and look at some of the other stuff we did. But we got a lot of like, I'm sorry, Mike, it was a joke. I didn't want to upset you. I was just trying to be funny.
Mike, pull up your big boy pants. Come on.
This link I just dropped was to an interview, like I said, that this gentleman Savage did with one of the inmates that was supposedly involved in the meeting. Hello, Jeremy's
Hello,
autistic
Jeremy.
So, and again, it's called Gabriel's Clips on the Roundtables playlist. Um, a lot of the videos and stuff, hey, Joe, is, some of the videos I played during our streams throughout this series. I'm not sure if I played them all. But a lot of the links, like Dora said, that we got our information from articles and stuff, I do, she has, I have. So if anybody would be interested in them, we do have them. Again, if anybody wants to donate to Gabriel, one of Gabriel's foundations, the Facebook link is being dropped in the chat. If you don't have Facebook and want to um, make a donation, just let me or Doris know. We have a way to do it. We can get you the information. um, and again, we are going to be, the roundtable is going to be making a donation to one of Gabriel's foundations. When we do that, we will come and show you guys, either make a video or show it up during one of the live streams. We plan on doing that for all the children that have a foundation in their name that we talk about. Um, just because we don't want to profit off these children's deaths. So, or their stories. Because that's not what we're here for. Again, we're here to spread awareness. And again, me and Doris will work diligently on getting that petition so we can put that link in the Nightbot so it can be dropped as well. Any other questions before we end this and start a regular roundtable stream? Besides, like being mad at me, I was trying to joke.
Apollo Junction and Jeremy's autistic vlogs. Make sure you join us on the next stream about history, Ken.
It depends on what kind of history you're talking about.
Lorna, yeah. I've heard someone said that last week too.
Mm-hmm. No, Coppola. Yeah, I heard that too. But Lorna, I did. The Gabriel story it spread fast.
I
because-
think Netflix did a good job on the documentary and of spreading Gabriel's story.
Mhm. And Gabriel's abuse and torture was the worst that county's ever seen, that state has ever seen. And if you read some articles, they will say that it's the worst in this country. But I'm sure there was worse. Well, if nobody has any other questions or concerns, I'm going to end this one and
End it.
start the roundtable shenanigans. So I hope to see everybody back over at a regular roundtable stream. Much love. Thank you, everybody that stuck with us through the Gabriel story. I love you all. Ken, me and Doris want to give you a big shout out because through this all, through all the grief and people talking crap, you are our biggest supporter with this. I mean, a lot of people supported us, but Ken was the one that kept encouraging me and giving me kind words and telling me how proud he was of me and how much work me and Doris put into this. So, Ken, for that, I want to thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
And thank everybody that's been here with us throughout this whole stream, throughout this whole um, story. And we'll be back next Friday where we give you updates on the crazy, wacky story that's going on with the Tiger King. And then, to give us a mental break and you all a mental break before we jump into Anthony's story. So much love to everybody. I'll see you guys in a little bit for the round table shenanigans.